Good evening, gentlemen. I submitted the final plan for 21 Lawrence Plain Road, the very small subdivision. The plan was approved a couple of months ago. The 20-day appeal period has expired. The decision was recorded at the Registry of Deeds. The recording information was put onto the plan, and I sent it to you guys for final review, hoping that I have everything on there that is required. And if so, I would just like you to grant the chairman permission to sign said plan.
Let me see if I can get that up. Okay. Okay, and let me see now if I can share.
Okay, so the plan is what I showed to you during the public hearing. The only addition is over on the left, under where the planning board signature and the town clerk signature goes, is the filled out planning board decision recorded in book whatever, page whatever. I can't read it, but I had that planning board decision line there. I just had question marks underneath it. So now it's all filled in and set to go.
Looks fine to me.
So for the audience, Randy, this is a private road
Correct?
and it has to have sufficient driveway into that private way for the fire truck to access.
Yes.
And
We have that. We have the gravel road shown. We have a turnaround for emergency vehicles. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We cover all those bases.
It's a private road. It will never become a town road for those reasons. Certain subdivision regulations have been waived because of that. And just so everybody listening knows what's going on.
I'll make a motion to authorize signature.
second,
Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen. That's all I have for this evening.
Okay.
So next one in is has the name of Doc Prune.
I don't think he's here for anything. He's a reporter for the Reminder. He wants
Okay.
to watch the hearings on the solar and stuff.
Okay. Next in just has Alan.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
I guess my video is not working. I'm with the battery people.
Okay, we'll get to you. Mr. Fiden was the next one on the list.
you're muted, Tony.
Hi there. I don't know if this is the right time. I was going to speak about the bylaw regarding the battery storage. Is this the appropriate time for that?
There is going to be a public hearing on the proposed battery storage and a public hearing on the energy storage bylaw. Yes, both.
But that'll start in probably half
That'll
an
be
hour.
starting in probably a little after 7 o'clock with all the stuff we have on the agenda.
So I'll just hang in there
Yep.
until it's
Just be patient. It will be on the meeting tonight.
sounds good. I'll wait.
Next in was identified as BC.
Hi, I'm up on Breckenridge Road. I'm here for the battery power installation.
Okay,
We'll get to that.
Yep.
Next in, Andrew.
Secondonic.
I don't know.
No?
Yeah, Andy, it's Andrew Gnotic.
Okay. Next in was Jack Sykowski.
Jack? Mr. Sykowski, are you here for anything particular or just for information? No, we'll get back to him.
Okay.
Well,
Next,
Jack is just watching. I see he texted. Okay.
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 Next, on my, next in order was Sam Lombardo. Is Sam Lombardo.
Yes. How's everyone doing tonight? Thanks for having me. I was just returning. I was here 2 weeks ago just to fill everyone in. I'm with Adams and Ruxton Construction Company. We're working for Bank of America. And we're going to be adding, or we'd like to add some telephone poles in the Hampshire Mall area of Hadley. And we have landlord approval to do that there. And I sent over the specs for you guys to review if you have any questions, or if you want me to recap anything from last week, but I think it was pretty straightforward.
Can you,
I think
just,
go ahead, Bill.
can you just share the tear sheets?
Yes, I'll try to do that.
Hang on a second. Let me just enable you to share.
Yeah, I had just
Go ahead.
asked if we could see a cut of the fixtures just to, I think Bill and Jim asked if it was a,
He did send them in, and I did send them around to
Yep,
everyone. But if you can bring it up share it from your end, that would be
I think there was
appreciated.
a VSS and there were,
Yeah, it was the VSS 1.
yeah.
I think I can. I'm trying to find out the. So just
It did seem like it was responsible, not going to increase light pollution. Yeah,
Shoebox style light.
yeah,
Exactly what we want.
yep. Yes, thank you for submitting that. And I've forgotten if you said what the heights were.
the heights in this particular, we're gonna match what else was there, which is 25 finished grade. Yeah, one was gonna be just 10 feet above finished grade, and then 25 feet for the remaining.
Okay.
Could you just put that back up again, please?
Which the VSS
The
one.
shoebox pick.
Yep. No problem.
And the 25-foot was more toward the center of your site, I believe.
So I guess my concern about this is I can actually see the I can see the light, well, LEDs or whatever from this angle. Is there any option to have a little bit more shielding, another couple of inches down or something?
Yes, I can, I could get back to you on that. I believe they are recessed in this particular setup. Just the way it's showing it to you, it wants you to kind of see what the lights are, but there's no, they're everything that we've been doing for them has been very cognizant of it, all the town's planning departments, and everything that is wanted is a lot of the same things from everyone. So
Have you,
these are really designed to, have your best interest in mind and the bank for security.
have you
there-
put any of these up anyplace else we can see?
We've put these up all over New England, yeah. So I
Any place local.
yes, yep. Let me
Isn't
see
there
if I
a row diagram if you scroll down that shows the pattern of,
Where is there someplace local we could go to see these?
all over Western Mass. I could send you a couple different towns, anywhere from Springfield to Holyoke to
Yeah,
all the way
I
through
mean,
Boston,
A
anywhere.
couple of addresses would be great.
Sure, no problem.
Preferably in Hampshire County.
The concern we have one installation where the parking lot where the lights were installed was above the grade of the road. It was off the road and up a little bit. And even though you had all the light dispersal looked beautiful, the fact is that people driving by got the glare of their bulb from the side. And
Yep.
we felt that was a distraction. So that's just what I was asking, that there be
additional shielding, right?
how much shielding there is. That's pretty much exactly what we want in overall style, but I'm just mindful of that side glare.
I understand. I don't think it's an issue in terms of everything that I've seen with these. So, but if you want some further examples, I can try to provide that.
Yeah, couple of addresses would be great. That'd be fine.
And I'm not sure where the 25-foot is, but that's giving you a lot of coverage. And whereas it might be more advantageous to drivers outside the site if you had the lower poles that didn't, so that wasn't visible off-site as Bill said. But I know that would mean additional poles and fixtures. But that might be the end that we're aiming at, so that
I think this is far enough in, so this isn't a major concern, but just trying to be consistent.
Yeah, you have the 10 is going to be in the island, I think, behind the ATM right there. Or I shouldn't say I think, but it is going to be in the island behind the ATM, and the 25s are going to be spread across. I don't know if you can see that, but if it's still showing.
that is the ATM that's opposite Trader Joe's.
Yeah, are you guys seeing the plan right now, Benny?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
And the orange, I believe we said was existing. So the blue are the new ones.
so this is really the area that they try to bring into compliance, basically where, for security purposes.
So the two lights in the island are going to be 10 foot. The rest are going to be behind it are going to be 25 foot. Is that
This
right?
one's 10 here.
That's 10.
Those are,
And the two on the island with the tree, are those also 10s?
those are 25.
Those are right along the main.
Yes.
drive there.
We got one new pole at 10, four of them 25.
Yeah.
Where is Trader Joe's in relation to this? To the top of the page or below it?
Should be top, right?
Top of the page.
That's what I thought. Okay.
You can
Upper
see
left.
the
Or right.
you can see the driveway into Trader Joe's.
Oh, that's that Trader Joe's driveway? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
What's the-
it's Dick's Sporting Goods, I believe, is in the.
What's the maximum we allow on the height?
We recommend 15 feet, but ours are the planning board discretion to go higher.
Yeah, but if we have 225, that seems to be a little bit dramatic.
Most of the lights in the lot now are probably 25 foot.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah, these were also, and the people who own the mall, they want things to match as much as possible. So we're always trying to work with them to.
So the two UUHC ones with two heads each, those are completely new poles.
That's correct.
Is there a pole being removed, or just that area is underlit?
It's underlit. There's nothing there now. These would be completely added. The orange on the side there, that's existing. That's the only one existing there now.
So I would be content not to require you to keep on coming back, but I would be content if the new fixtures have no more side glare than the current fixtures.
I'm sorry, I missed that. I just was writing something down, but
Yeah, well, I'll put it into the motion, but I'm okay with the shoebox fixtures as long as what you install has no greater side glow than the current fixtures in the lot. We've had no complaints about that. I go in there at night and I've not noticed it being a problem. So as long as the new ones have no more exposed glare than what is there now.
And what about the color? The new ones are LED, are the old ones fluorescent or HPS or?
we'll match that to be fluorescent, with existing what's there. And
So
like a lot of times too, they're going to change the fixtures at some point, and we'll continue to work with them as Bank of America continues to be a tenant there.
Okay.
We're doing a similar one at Holyoke Crossing right now, actually. That one comes to mind.
So Jim, Bill, are we looking to vote on this to approve it with the caveat that Bill mentioned, and then also address of other installations of this type fixture?
I'm content to just approve shoebox style fixtures on the condition there's no greater side glare than current installs.
Seeing addresses of other locations is not part of the motion, Mark. Just someplace we could see an example.
Okay.
I can send those. I'll just send those right to planning.
That's
Okay.
fine. Any other comments or questions?
No, this is the delicate balance because I'm sure the pyramid hierarchy is aware of that incident that was about 20 years ago where there was some concern about the lighting, and they don't want to repeat that again.
Okay, so that was my motion. Is there a second?
What was your motion, Bill?
Motion is to approve the shoebox style lights on condition no greater side glare than current install.
Okay,
I'll second it.
your motion and second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, you can take down your pictures there, Mr. Lombardo.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bill, you want me to write this up as a waiver, or you gonna put it together? I got it down. I can do it.
Yeah, go ahead. You do
Okay.
it.
All right. The
Now,
building inspector is listening, Mr. Lombardo. So I will give a formal writing to him. However, you could go right there tomorrow and apply for the building permit if you so desire.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys' time tonight. Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
okay, next one I had in was Sean Mackin.
Hi, everybody. I'm here for the battery storage facility discussion.
Okay.
Okay, and Iris Tang.
Iris Tang, are you here for the hearings or something for general information? Well, we can come back to her if she wants some questions.
I think she tried to unmute, but I don't think we heard anything.
Okay, well, if she unmutes, we can listen to her if she has a question. Well, since there's no one else here for general information, we will start the, actually, you could go forward with the 281 Rocky Hill, 21 Rocky Hill bill. It's actually 81 Rocky Hill, minor.
Yeah, the two 81. Did I make?
Right,
Okay,
and the two admin reviews for small scale solar.
okay. I'm going to just print out my checklist on that.
Okay,
Could have done this while I was waiting, but can't have everything. Okay. Okay, so which admin review do you want to do first? I think we have representatives from both.
well, you got 81 Rocky Hill Road listed first, so we'll do that one.
Okay,
Who's representing 81 Rocky Hill?
I am.
Okay.
Hill, PV Squared Solar.
You're up. Could you explain what's going on?
Sure. We have a pretty basic ground mounted solar array at 81 Rocky Hill Road, pretty far back in the property. As you can see in I'm assuming you all have seen all the materials submitted. So, the plan view shows you how far back it is, behind 3 greenhouses and an existing solar array, completely invisible from the street. It's an active farm property. There's a lot going on there. This is just off to the side. And, the scale of it is residential. The height is within requirements. It is, the impact of this pretty low, and it's outside of any setback areas. Pretty basic stuff.
Can we put up the,
You have a drawing you can put up?
I I do. I have all the materials. Am I credentialed to screen share?
Yes, you are.
Sounds like I'm sharing my screen. Do you all see it?
Yes.
Great. So, the array in red here, this is the proposed new array. This is the existing array. These are greenhouses working as part of the farm, a barn and the house up here. This red line is the trench to connect electrically up to the meter at the farmhouse. Got your setbacks drawn in all around in the pink dotted line. There is a stream buffer zone over here and wetland buffer zone down towards the bottom. Laid out with their appropriate distances, and we are well clear of those. Streets up the top here, and between trees and barn and greenhouses, there is no angle where you will see this from the street.
No, I think that's nicely cited in terms of minimizing impact.
And those are being installed on those screw-in posts?
Yes, sir. Let's see, I can get you to the spec sheet on that material. So this is the racking arrangement. So this is installed by a subcontractor we hired called Solar Foundations USA. They come in and they drive ground screws and then install a steel racking structure above that. It's all engineered, stamped, as you can see. Oops. So here's a schematic of the screw. Height's about 12 feet. Well within. Pretty slick arrangement, really. I mean, back for a while we were driving posts, pneumatically pounding them into the ground. That was loud and disruptive. There was also a period of time where arrays like this were on big concrete blocks. Those were really unwieldy. So the advent of the ground screw has really made a difference in the simplicity and kind of clean installation of these things. And they can be removed.
Any questions from anybody?
So, photo of the site standing there so you can see, you can see that you can't see the road from here, but, the new array would be more or less where this trailer is here, parked in front of the existing.
Anybody have any questions, comments?
No, I think that's great.
Hearing none, Mr. Dwyer?
I think this, I don't have to go through the whole checklist. I'll just make a motion to approve it as satisfying the bylaw.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Very good. Good
Thank
luck.
you very much, Shinlin. Tom, I see you're on the screen. Do we have a 20-day waiting period on this?
There's
before
no
we can
appeal
apply for
period
building
on
permit?
this.
No. Okay.
It's not,
So
it's
we
not a
will,
special, it's not a special permit, so you could literally go tomorrow and apply to Mr. Quinlan.
Very good. We shall, maybe not tomorrow, but quite soon, be dropping an application your way, Tom. Thank you so much.
Okay? Very good. 6 Rocky Hill Road is next.
6 Maple Ave.
Maple Ave, sorry, 6 Maple Ave. I'm sorry, Maple Ave.
6 Maple Ave. I'm here from Valley Solar, representing. This is a very similar. I can share my screen. Moment. It's a very similar project. Helical pile. It's actually the same company puts these in. We have a 20-panel array in conjunction with a rooftop solar array. The only difference, and we do have quite a bit of setbacks, the only difference is we only have a 20-foot setback from the rear of the property. And so I was going to discuss getting an exception. So the rear of the property is a farmland, and I can show you, here's the property facing south. So this would be towards Maple Avenue. So it's behind the house, not visible from the street because of that. The abutter is a 50-foot setback, but the rear abutter is only 20 foot, and this is what you can see. It's farmland on the other side. Let me see real quick.
Well, I wouldn't say it's being actively farmed, but
Yeah, right. And moment, here we go. So this gives you the bird's eye view of where that setback lands. The nearest neighbor is on the right there. And the height here is about 10.5 feet or 11 feet, depending on the install. And I can go over any other dimensions if I know people have the sheet in front of them as well.
how, what's the likelihood of that reflecting onto Maple Ave?
I would say 0 likelihood. We have doesn't show exactly, but we have about 150 feet back. And because of the house and because of the vegetation near the front, let's see if I can get some more photos for you. So this is facing east. So this is the nearest property. We do have, looks like arborvitae trees blocking the view. We do have the 50-foot setback there as well, though. Facing south, let's see. Here's, as you can see, we're pretty much exactly in line with the house. So, you know, a car coming down, I don't know if there's any possible way for that to reflect back to the road.
You don't have any charts or sections that would show the solar angle versus the angle of the array and how that would reflect? Is that not a standard consideration?
We have some documentation that I can send along showing studies about solar glare. What I can tell you today is we have a 25-degree tilt. So over 150 feet from the road with a 25-degree tilt. I don't know if that is not something that would be a concern on this project. We have had that concern when there's an open field. The array is closer to the road, especially when this turns. But not in this case because of Maple Avenue. It's the straight road. But yeah, that is, if that's something, I can put something together for you.
I'm just trying
to analysis.
I'm trying to figure what angle would head toward the road. It would have to be, yeah, it would have to be coming from the north, reflecting. I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah. So your headlight you'd have to be a road next to it where you would turn and reflect it, or or something head on, or steeper angle maybe.
I just know, you know, there can be one windshield in a parking lot that can blind you. Just trying to ask the questions.
Yeah, I hear you. I know for West Stockbridge, we did, for a project that was in the open near the highway, we did send along some essays and documentation about the flare. So I can with similar panels.
I mean, I don't know what my colleagues think, but I'm thinking it's going to be a rare angle that's going to go toward the road, and then you would, as you said, you're driving east or west, you'd have to be looking away from the road to get the glare. So I think you've got it covered. I don't know what my colleagues think.
While it's not totally invisible, you got to work to see this from Maple Ave. So I don't
Yeah.
see that as a big deal.
Yeah.
That's my personal opinion.
Contrast it with the one that's on Huntington Road, which is further back,
Yeah,
but
it's like
it is
500 feet back or something, right?
it is facing south on an east-west road,
Right.
and not heard or noticed any glare from that in particular.
Mhm.
You know it's there. It's not
Right.
invisible, but it's not eye-catching.
And I would think
Yeah.
the glare would have to be like just certain times a day if there's no clouds, right?
Yeah, part of the thing also is that the newer style panels have incorporated anti-glare. So I think this is it's much less discussed issue in the last 5-10 years than it was before that. Yeah, so that's mainly like in the past when we've run into that with towns, that's mainly the thing we cite is just the panel construction. They're made with anti-glare. There's the panel manufacturers put out their own analysis based on that.
I got solar panels that are almost 12 years old and there's virtually no glare on them. There's probably more glare on the newer panels that I've got than the old ones.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah. If you got glare on a solar panel, the manufacturer wants to know it because that means his panels or their panels, if you would, aren't operating very efficiently. In a nutshell. Any other questions? I see that your setbacks are less than 50 feet. However, to your north, nobody can build within 50 feet of your rear property, if I'm correct, because of the ditch that's back there either. So you gotta directly behind you, well, it's basically it's a put up that first sheet if you would.
Of course. Yep.
Yeah. You got to the north of the approximately where his arrow is, there's a ditch back there that's the town does clear out now and again, which is good. But nobody's gonna be building anywhere near that rear property line with the building.
Yeah, I was looking on satellite view. I think that's basically our request in this case, because there's no one for 50 feet, which would be 70 feet then, including the 20-foot setback on this property.
That ditch has probably a sizable what do you call it? Wetland setback. I'm not sure what they call it, what the correct phrase is.
A perennial stream, so it would require a significant setback.
Yeah.
So is this a conventional lot that it has a front setback, 2 side setbacks, and a rear setback?
That's correct. Yeah.
It's not a corner lot that has no.
No, this is not a corner lot. It's a trapezoid almost shaped lot. However, that's only because the back line is just the way the property runs, but it's in the middle of the street almost.
And so the rear setback?
That's the rear, and behind those trees is a ditch.
And then I think there's another line of trees or bushes on the adjacent property. So I would, most times of the year, I mean, this is taken in the fall, so maybe in the winter it would be visible if you're right on the other side of that ditch, but I would say it's much less visible than the side property or even the front because of that.
Yep.
I'm just asking if we stated what the required setbacks are, front, side, and rear. Have we?
I'll show you, I'll bring up the bylaw.
The bylaw says 50 feet from side and rear.
Here's the
Right
bylaw.
there.
Okay.
Yep.
And 100 feet from Route 47, I believe.
Yeah, but you're not near 47.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we're considering,
And the planning board has authority to waive those dimensions.
the 50 as this has no adverse effects. Okay.
I mean, he's almost 50 feet from the side. He's 2.5 feet short, 2 foot 8 inches to be exact. And the rear property line, like I said, it's probably 30 feet short. However, there's nothing behind him that can be built nearby. No buildings, rather.
Yeah. Just to know, I believe we can hit that 50. It looks like we're 50 feet to the house. I believe we are about 50 feet to the array. So I can redo the plans to demonstrate that. It looks like that that would be helpful to have. But that's missing. So that the side of butter wouldn't even be a question. It would be granted by the code.
Okay.
Yeah, and going back, I'm not concerned about the reflectivity of the array at the back. The 6 going on the east hip of the roof, those are proposed new?
Yeah, so the rest of the array is this is all proposed system.
The roof mount is by right, so we don't
Exactly.
review that.
Yeah.
Okay. Then I don't think we have any more questions, or at least I don't.
Any other questions? What comments from anybody? Hearing none?
I'll make a motion to approve as satisfying the bylaw with the finding that a 20-foot, 6-inch rear setback is acceptable under site conditions.
Second.
Motion second. Any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Like with the first of Mr. Brekelbaum, the building inspector is listening, so you could literally go and apply tomorrow for your building permit.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Next up, the public hearings. I will read the first public one. Let's see. The Hadley Planning Board will conduct Zoom public hearings on March 19th, 2024, begin at 6:45 p.m. The purpose of the first hearing is to review the application of ZP Battery Development Company, LLC, to construct an energy storage system at 0 Breckenridge Road, site of the former gravel pit, for special permits, site plan approval, business use and aquifer, and solar energy systems. The second hearing is to review the application of Belize SLS LLC, remove the existing building and erect approximately 32,600 square feet at 315 Russell Street, formerly Steve Lewis Subaru. Intended for use is for a new Subaru dealership. For special permits, site plan approval, business use in aquifer, and transfer of development. Plans are available by emailing planning@hadleyma.gov or visit town clerk's office during normal business hours. Twice in March 4 and 11. And we'll take up the Subaru dealer first because they are requesting a continuance to, do you know when, Mr. Dwyer?
They just said they weren't going to be ready tonight, so as we are looking forward, We have, let's see, for
Want to do April
our,
2nd, just in case they're ready, we can always continue it again.
yeah, we do have in the green continued to April 6th or to
April 2nd.
April 7th already. No, April 2.
April 2nd, yeah.
April 2nd, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we have in the green continued to April 2nd.
Yeah,
Add this to,
attorney know if they're not ready, we'll just continue. No big deal. Okay. All right. Okay, we need a motion on that?
I think yeah, sure, I'll make a motion to move continue to April 2nd
Okay,
So there's two, bro.
at the request of the applicant.
okay.
I would second that.
A motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion is the public hearing will be continued. Just for everybody's information, there is the Subaru is requesting, because they're basically being pressured by Subaru. I don't know if it's called Subaru America Bill or Subaru Corporate.
Whatever.
Whatever, the Subaru Corporate pressuring police to apply for a 143 square foot building mounted illuminated sign. And the public hearing on that with the ZBA is March 28th. And I believe at 6 o'clock or something like that, 7 o'clock. So before we move too much forward out of that one, I think we want to make an opinion of the planning board that we are opposed to both.
That would be correct.
Yeah, they have no justification, no hardship that would justify a variance for twice the allowed signage and internally lit when we don't allow internally lit signs.
Right.
So, well, you're looking for the opinion, Jim, but, so, okay. But this is, for people in the audience, I remember there were a few others that used to request that. They said corporate requested or else we won't come. Old Navy was one in particular. So they came, they complied.
I'll make a motion to oppose excessive and internally illuminated signage.
Second.
Josie seconded it.
Okay.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion is unanimous. Okay. I'm not sure I can make that public hearing. I'll let you know. Hopefully at least a couple of us can attend it and make our comments, our opinions known. Okay.
Bill, you going to attend, Bill?
I will try to.
Yeah, won't hurt to have a couple. Next up, I believe Mr. Corbett, Mr. Corbett of 0 Point.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
So Tom Corbett, 0 Point Development, ZP Battery DevCo, here for Breckenridge Road, energy storage. I did forward you guys an email the other day, last week, just kind of letting you know project status. So the application that you have in front of you has a plan dated sometime last year, November. So since then, we're implementing a revision into the plan for a secondary containment of the battery pads themselves. So I could get a little bit into the project if you'd like me to tonight, but we are still working with Berkshire Design Group as well, just because they haven't seen that revision yet. So we are actively getting that done now, since we've gotten the somewhat blessing to move forward here, so that we've worked on that plan and that's getting implemented. What that's going to look like is a geomembrane, polyvinyl membrane underneath, around the pads for the containment of the pads during fire operations if ever needed. What that would be is a normally open valve. So
Could I just interrupt for a moment? We've been talking with you informally about this for a long time, but there are people here for the public hearing on this who would perhaps like to see the whole thing, just an overview of the whole thing. So if you could share your screen and put your plans up, and just pretend that we haven't all, that you remember that you're talking to more than just.
Understood. Yes. No, I plan on that. I just wanted to give a little briefing on where we're at. So just we're working on containment revisions with the plan. So just know that looking at this plan, the configuration of the system is going to change a little bit with the revision. So just know that looking into this, let me bring up the plan here for you. Okay. Can you see, hold on a second. I always have trouble with this bar up top. You all see that now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so here to the east, we have Breckenridge Road.
You're on
Well,
a.
that's not the plan we're looking at.
You're showing 3.1 battery container.
Yeah, battery container.
Looks like an elevation. We saw the plan and then it went to the elevation.
Okay. I always have trouble with the one screen. Let's check this.
Is it just me? I seem to hear a little chatter background.
Do you can you see this now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. I have too many things open. All right. So we've got Breckenridge Road to the east here, entrance down the existing gravel drive. So let me, so yeah, we come down the existing gravel drive, electrical infrastructure is underground. And from the interconnection point roadside, so that's National Grid equipment, just like a solar field connects to the grid on a 3-phase line.
I mean, Eversource equipment.
Yep, sorry, Eversource equipment. I'm used to National Grid, I apologize. So the Eversource equipment would be at the roadside. We would have a customer disconnect up by the roadside as well. After that disconnect, the electrical goes underground to the site through the dotted area here, down into the site here, where you can see there are 4 pads here. So those 4 pads, they house the battery containers themselves. And the electrical equipment to the south of those pads, those are all meters, reclosers, and inverters for getting the electrical power back up to the level that it needs to be to go out to the street. With this site, like I said, we are making a revision to this plan, so I don't want to get too deep into the layout as far as drainage and stuff. So that's going to change just slightly. But right now we've got a shallow basin here. All the water from the site sheds overland through a grassy area on the front side of the fence, and then into the shallow basin and where it exits across the drive, as it currently does today. We are enhancing the outflow end of this project, or on this end of the pipe, So at the outflow, we're going to be putting some more riprap. We've been to conservation with this project. We've gotten a request for determination and a negative determination from them. That was about 2 years ago now at this point. So overall, that's kind of the layout of the project. So looking at the site itself off of Breckenridge, it's all wooded. This is an existing road coming in, gravel drive for Carl's excavating and Carl's site work. So there's trucks in and out of here frequently with material and stuff. So it's a well-packed road. And the site itself is relatively level. There's some stockpiling on the existing area in which we're proposing the project. And like I said, I think this project layout's just going to tweak just a little bit. It's going to square up with the property lines a little bit better, and just to access in and just to allow a little bit more space for the secondary containment. So I can continue unless you guys want to ask any brief questions on site layout.
Yeah, what's the rough setback from Breckenridge to that corner there? Yeah.
From Breckenridge, over 600 feet.
Okay. 2 football.
Why don't you tell the audience or the people that are here for the hearing what the purpose of these batteries is, why they're necessary?
Sure thing. So the state of Massachusetts is going through a green movement, and they are moving towards electrifying the grid with offshore wind, as well as all the solar that we have currently within the state, and also opening up for a lot more solar in the near future, so they say. So what the goal is on the state level is to connect all the generation that you get during the day, during intermediate times like solar, wind, hydro, and the initiative is to store that energy for later use during times of high demand. Reasons for that is high electricity demand charges from the larger grid. So ISO New England owns and operates the transmission lines who deliver power to towns like Hadley and your surrounding areas, to substations like the Podunk station that this project connects to. When it's a cold November night, cold January night, everybody's got their heat, everything's going on, everybody's using a lot of electricity. Those demand prices are astronomical because everybody needs it. So the effectiveness of capturing the renewable energy that's within your grid now and storing it locally in the local grid alleviates the need for the demand charges in most cases. So that's kind of the way that the state's going. The state's been pretty big on battery storage and getting initiatives rolling. There's the Clean Peak Energy Standard. That is the standard CMR 225. That is the Clean Peak Standard is the outline for the path of batteries in Massachusetts over the next decade. Right now, the state is also looking at creating a permitting board and delivering model language with that permitting board. So there's a lot of conversations going on at the state, as well as National Grid and the federal level, for that matter. So the initiative is to get green energy, store it, and deliver it during times of need.
So in theory, this is, in a sunny, a week where it's good sun, this would be charging every day and discharging each night. So it would be up and then down, it'd be a daily cycle.
Yes, the project, the goal is to cycle daily.
Yeah.
In and out daily, yes. That would be the goal. So it's going to enhance the local grid in many ways. I don't know if you guys experience any kind of brownouts or anything like that in your area, but there are some areas in our part of that. And what these do is they regulate the voltage on the line as well. And they produce a better quality of power for all of the residents.
But I think we talked, excuse me, go ahead.
Getting back to Mark's question, how far is it from Breckenridge Road, or Breckenridge Road to the battery storage?
Without actually having to put a wheel on it, it's about 600 feet. I've put a wheel on the driveway, so it's roughly 600.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Michael.
Is this a public hearing for accepting these solar batteries before our town meeting as the chance to vote on it?
Say it again?
Certainly, we're going to have something coming up at the town meeting regarding the battery storage systems. Now,
That's on the public hearing for the zoning bylaw is after this.
okay, but are we looking to approve this before we go to the town meeting, or is that what the?
Can't. We
None?
can't approve it because we don't have an energy storage bylaw. We're holding the public hearing tonight
Okay,
because of the application time frame. If we didn't hold this public hearing tonight, it could be approved by default for lack of action. By holding the public hearing tonight, we will continue this until after the town meeting. Plus, the drainage review hasn't been complete anyway, so we're missing some information to begin with as well. But we're holding the public hearing to avoid the penalty of approval by default.
I kind of knew that, Jim, but you made a
Right.
good explanation to the audience.
Just for the people information
Yes.
for the people listening.
Perfect.
This is a complex situation we are in. We have a solar bylaw that was written quite a few years ago for solar panels. Town council has determined that it does not permit energy storage. However,
From the grid, from the grid.
from the grid, correct.
Without
You
solar
can't have
generation on the site.
You can't have a standalone energy storage system. If it was an association with a solar panel system, large scale, then you could have it. Anyways, enough said about that. However, the state powers to be, for lack of a term, but it's more than just the AG, has determined that you cannot disallow solar or energy storage. And they have disapproved certain sections of other towns' bylaws in the state that specifically did not permit battery storage. So if this gentleman applies and we don't have an energy storage bylaw, we would have to disapprove it. Now, he's going to have to go and sue the planning board. The planning board's going to have to determine with the select board to defend it in court. This is going to take, to be quite honest, several years. So we're trying to avoid unnecessary cost to the parties involved by having this public hearing tonight and implementing an energy storage bylaw that will be voted on at the annual town meeting in May and avoid a disaster of getting a lot of lawyers making a lot of money.
Well, we don't know that's gonna happen, Jim. Come on, we don't know that's gonna happen. I mean, the town you referred to was Wendell. I mean, did Wendell set a precedent here? But, you know, you can't say that we're gonna get sued. We don't know. Is Eversource gonna sue us? Because that's who this guy is working for, Eversource. You don't know that. Let them sue us. I'd rather be sued than put people's lives in jeopardy.
If this gentleman doesn't sue us, somebody else will. And I don't think it's worth the town's while to go after and pursue that kind of, we're planning board. We're supposed to be planning, not sitting here waiting for lawsuits.
Well, we also don't have to create a bylaw when somebody says we want a bylaw, if it's going to be to the detriment of the town.
Well, I don't think we're creating this bylaw because of 0 Point. We're doing it because of the state policy. And we're trying to have something in place,
We're here because Eversource has a amalgamation of, for better word, feed lines that essentially end up at the gravel pit. So they need us to allow them to put solar batteries, lithium batteries, in an area that fits their previous decisions as to where these lines are gonna come.
Well, we're not conducting the public hearing on the energy bylaw right now. That's gonna be after this. And some of your statements are incorrect, Mike, so I don't want to get into that.
Which
right now.
ones? Which ones? Please tell
I
me.
don't want to get into it now, Mike.
In the
That's
next
not-
hearing.
That's not the topic in front of us. They're related, but unfortunately, we're having two separate hearings. So this is the 0.1.
But the important point is, this is over the aquifer protection. And what kind of protection will be required? And are we capable enough of discerning that this protection that they are offering is sufficient to protect our wells? This is something we may need a peer review on, but it's
Yeah,
not
if I-
for
if I
now
may.
or later.
And when these things explode, we're concerned about a leakage into the aquifer. We're talking about toxic gases that are very detrimental to human beings and other animal life.
Okay.
On a brighter note,
If I may, so I can kind of continue explaining here what I'm talking about with the containment measures. So I'm going to show you.
and Tom, can you give an elevator explanation of how you prevent the batteries from overloading? Like you must have some kind of a relay, governor, gauge, something that says no more from the grid. We're at whatever, 90% or something.
Yep. So what happens with these projects? Hold on one second. I'm sorry, Mark. I'm just looking at the screen trying to share.
Because I think that would be one concern that I think a lot of people would have, that it's not going to be overcharged. And
Sure.
flow as
So
Mike said.
fire safety with these systems is through the roof. Literally, they've got the way that these battery containers are set up. They have two different containment areas. So I'm gonna try and pull that up for you real quick.
I was just hoping you could speak to the preventative measures instead of the reactive.
Yep. No, so the preventative measures include I can get this thing to so can you see my screen here?
Yes.
The containers.
Yeah.
So the preventative measures here are from a design standpoint first and foremost. So the design of the cabinets with the separation of energy. So the cabinets are designed here. You can see the doors. They're single doors for each area. I believe there's 9 doors, 8 doors. So the first door here has your cooling unit. It's a liquid cooled system. And then you've got your batteries in the next 3 racks. Those are separated by converters. That's a over 3 foot distance between the 2 racks of batteries. So if you're looking at this diagram, these highlighted areas are your containment areas. Those areas have smoke alarms, heat alarms, gas alarms, as well as they're outfitted with, as you can see here in red, those are dry pipes for a water deluge system. It's required by NFPA 855. It is not recommended to use those during operations of a fire event by our fire consultants, and a hazard mitigation analysis that has been performed on this system by our consultants. So that's kind of the exterior shell protections. Where your real protections come in as your battery management system. Your battery management system is remotely monitored 24/7. It has 3 different levels of protections. So we'll put it in 3 different levels of a unit level, being the whole container itself, and down to a rack level, which would be these 3 and these 3, and then down to a module level where it is just a singular one of these battery modules. So there are different things that the system is tracking, items that the system is tracking, thresholds such as cell temperature, cell state of charge, module state of charge, the module temperature, the nominal energy that is there in the system, how that's distributing it. It's tracking all kinds of things, short circuits, fault currents, and then it has the ability to close off certain parts of the system. If one was to trend towards a fail, it would isolate that system, that part of the system, and call for maintenance well ahead of any kind of threshold number that is actually concerning. If it got to a point where there was a concerning level, it would, one, call the operator, and two, if a smoke alarm, heat alarm, things of that nature go off, it would call the fire department. The basic plan of attack upon any kind of ignition or fire event is to just surrounding exposures, to make sure that those surrounding exposures are all right, and to allow the energy to burn out of that one module that is on fire. Now, this large scale fire testing for these projects is extensive. The UL 9540 standard requires all of these batteries to go through these batteries with manufacturers have to go through testing for large scale fire testing on a unit level, as this whole container, on a rack level, as in those 3 racks of batteries, and then down to a module level as well. And that's kind of where they derive all their protections from as well. So that's all part of the research. So the fire safety on these are pretty through the roof. There's been minimal incidences across the country. There's been a few in the past year in New York, I know, that are concerning to people. I think the evidence on sites afterwards speak for themselves, that the systems did what they were supposed to do in most cases. And they allow the energy to burn out effectively, creating a safe environment after the fire. Post-fire operations are the safety is significantly increased when you allow energy to burn out of a lithium-ion battery and do not remove it from the site, quote unquote, suppressed.
Is there a commissioning process before these go live? Like after it's been connected, somewhat, the design engineer comes in and runs it at a low level to see how everything's operating?
Yep, exactly. So part of the commissioning process is that SunGrow actually comes out themselves and does a final walkthrough, torque spec, check on the entire system, fittings. That's all part of their offering as a manufacturer, and that's why they're the leader in the world for energy storage and zero fire incidences.
Yeah, and they're going to want that to be, their insurer is going to want that to be thorough. Okay, good.
And then to that point too, Mark, when the system's energized, upon mechanical completion, we would be boots on the ground creating a emergency response plan tailored to the site with the fire department, providing training for the fire department. NFPA 855 has recently been adopted by Massachusetts Fire Code, and we are required to follow it. And that also brings in yearly fire training, or as needed, things of that nature. So there's a lot to the emergency response plan. I think I submitted a draft to you all. It's pretty bare bones. It's nothing special because all the good stuff gets added while we're on site, looking at the exposures, looking at the angles of where we want to be during a fire event if things were to happen in certain scenarios. So there's the bulk of that document gets drafted at that point in time prior to occupancy permit, say.
Thank you.
Okay. What is your type? What is your cooling medium on your liquid?
The cooling is a ethylene glycol, just like a car. There's been some conversation about trying to implement a different type, and I am told that is millions of R&D because of the way that heat dissipates. So this one is a typical ethylene glycol. It's just like every car that runs around town. Pretty versatile and used everywhere.
how much liquid is in a was in one container of cooling, do you know?
I do, yes. So each container here, I'll just briefly describe the cooling. It runs through each module so that it keeps each individual module at optimal temp. So there's quite a bit of tubing within the system that holds the coolant, and that's where your coolant's actually going. So it's literally running through this pretty much entire container. So that system holds about 43 gallons worth of ethylene glycol water mixture. It's a 50-50, 45-55 water, 55. And there on the bottom of each container is actually a catch pan designed to catch any leakage that might ever come from a broken hose over time, or a cracked hose, or a fitting that failed. This stuff's all rubber grommets. We know that heater hoses don't. So that containment pan underneath the cabinet holds about 243% of the container.
You got 5 containers?
There, it's a 5 megawatt system. There's actually 8 containers involved.
So there's 8 times 43.
Correct.
I'm going to be very blunt. Ethylene glycol in that volume is not permitted as a cooling medium above the aquifer. It is not negotiable.
With containment of 110% in your aquifer bylaw,
it doesn't matter.
Above
The
ground.
use of ethylene glycol as a cooling medium in this volume is not permitted above the aquifer. Period.
In one spot.
You've
what's
got
your threshold?
one business here.
What's your threshold?
You've got one. This is considered one operation. So
What's your
8 times 43 is what? 480 gallons, roughly.
Without doing,
Almost, yeah. 400. It's roughly 350 gallons ballparking of glycol in this operation. It's not permitted above the aquifer.
What is the regulation on that,
You
Jim?
exceed the threshold for a very small quantity generator.
What is that threshold? Do you know off the top of your head, Jim?
Pardon?
Do you know that threshold off the top of your head, Jim?
How many gallons?
Yeah, I don't know what your bylaw states exactly.
You know, that's a hard, fast rule.
So covered container above ground containment system designed to hold 110% of the possible storage of all containers.
No, that's not the one. I believe it's storage of. I would have to get it to you. Oh yeah. 310 CMR. You exceed if you're considered anything but a very small quantity generator of hazardous liquids, you are not permitted in the aquifer.
I'd have to look at the regulation myself, but
I can look and give you chapter and verse of where it is. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And to that point, so we would have, there's underneath each container, there's a catch pan that holds around 200% or more of the ethylene glycol mixture that could potentially even be within one container itself. In each container, there's that pan that can be drained safely if ever something was to happen. So all that fluid would be contained within the container, within the pan. And then on top of that, we are working on a containment system. You see this now with the 4 squares. Yes. Hello. Can you see the
yes
4 squares? Okay.
Yep.
So the containment system. So these teal squares here represent the battery containers themselves. So the pads that the battery containers go on. And the containment system comes up to the top of the pad or the middle of the pad, roughly, gets secured to each pad. That rubber liner goes down a depth of X. In this case, we do about a foot. And that gets all the way around the site, 5 feet on each side, 10 feet on each side where the doors open. And that has a low spot in the drainage area that would have a vault that normal rainwater could exit to daylight in a normal day. Upon fire operations, a normally open stop valve would be triggered and closed, creating a bathtub containing any and all materials that would ever potentially spill during a fire event. So that's kind of brief explanation of the secondary containment that I'm working on, but I don't want to get too thick into the things without having that finalized. But I'd be happy to go through any more of the system itself if anybody so wished.
So if I could just, I think what Jim was looking for was section 12.5, prohibited uses in the Aquifer Protection District.
Yep.
And those are facilities that generate, treat, store, or dispose of hazardous wastes if they are not a very small quantity generator.
Correct. You comply with 12.5.2 because your hazardous waste is within a building. However, if you dispose of hazardous waste, ethylene glycol in that quantity is considered not a very small quantity. You're actually a large quantity generator, and it's not a permitted use in the zone. Propylene glycol would be permitted.
I will have to look into that.
Okay. Yeah. Without getting into the specifics of why they wouldn't want propylene glycol, I don't know. So I'm not even going to broach that topic. But I know many places use propylene glycol for cooling in a much more serious application than this.
What other communities in our area have this battery storage system?
Yeah, I'd be interested to go see one or two.
Yep. So as a standalone system, there are municipalities that have standalone systems right now.
Locally.
What's that?
Locally.
Locally near you, I believe Holyoke. I don't know if they've actually built theirs. I'd have to check back on that. That's been a while since I looked at that project, but towns out in Central Mass.
If you could just email planning at Hadley MA a few of the locations that have these.
Yep. So as a standalone unit right now in Mass, you'll see pretty much a single container that was done through the ACES grant back in 2017 through the state. So those systems have been installed since 2016-17 in the state, operational, proving proof of concept for the situation here we're in today. And as far as standalone within Eversource, Unitil, or National Grid territory within Massachusetts, they're all in development and final interconnection service agreement stages. I have 16 projects permitted throughout the state right now, and about 40 projects in with National Grid actively. There's some other developers as well that are moving through to do this as well. So the state has created an incentive program that is a little bit broken right now. So you don't see anything standalone on the ground right now as far as bigger projects.
Tom, you're mentioning Eversource quite often. Is Eversource the company that is going to build this? Because I noticed you were introducing a LLC, a limited liability corporation, independent of Eversource.
Correct. Eversource has nothing to do with the development of this project or the say and location of this project or the size of this project from the start. So Zero Point ZP Battery DevCo, every project is its own LLC. Eventually projects do get sold. they go. So typically, developers work with investors that fund the development of projects. So that's one avenue people go. Some developers just develop the project as a kit and sell them off. That's just how solar's been done over the years. It's just how business works. And that Eversource doesn't have any stake in that. We submit applications to Eversource. I submitted this application to Eversource back in 2020. It has been being looked at from Eversource ever since. And it is finally done on their end, and they are waiting on me at this point. They don't have any say as far as what this project looks like, what manufacturer we use, the only thing that they can tell us is how we interconnect the project and how much it's going to cost.
Does the manufacturer rely on cobalt that was mined in the Congo?
I do not know where they source their batteries from, but they are a CATL battery. CATL is the company. And given that we don't produce too much lithium-ion batteries here in the States, I'd imagine that they're from overseas.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at the Macon Club, which is very interested in slave labor across the world. And the title of this article is Cobalt Mining in the Congo Relies on Modern Day Slavery. I just want to make sure that we're not promoting slavery in the Congo. That's all.
I think this is pretty irrelevant to the conversation today.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
There's a higher bylaw than the Hadley bylaw.
There's irrelevant to the topic that we're discussing, Mr.
Got it. Okay.
So the other thing, Tom, is if, for example, that there is some concern in the town, or the planning board may ask for a bond to that you're really confident that this thing will not leak, but if it does leak, there is going to be a bond that will be available to the town to clean it up, and if there's any liability associated with it. But Eversource is a big company, but this LLC kind of, I don't know if they would bond it, but would it be worth a bond? Because of your limited liability, you could walk away from it.
We bond projects all the time in planning for decommissioning specifically. And we also have bonded for environmental reasons in the past. This particular containment system that we're utilizing on this site comes with a $7 million environmental policy on it. That's through Basic Concepts Inc. That is the installer and oversight of the containment system itself. We as a installer do not touch that. A separate company comes in and does that and holds the liability for the containment itself through a environmental policy.
Could you describe a little bit about the containment system?
Yeah, sure, Jim. So if you can you still see the gray square with the 4 squares in here?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try and change it over. Okay. So now you can see the middle picture here, that this is a very good depiction of what we're looking to do on site. So along the concrete pad, there will be a sealant there. The idea here is that the height of the liner is the containment, not the pad. So the liner here is the level in which the containment gets to. That can be adjusted for the site, desired volume, things of that nature. But like I said, typically we do about a foot and a half, 6 inches of gravel on top of that, so you lose some volume there. But that is a polyvinyl membrane, so that goes around the entire exterior of the site. These systems are have been used and are used for transformer containment. So these, in instances of a oil-filled large transformer on a Eversource substation, this is what they would be putting around it to contain the fluid. Same exact system. So this particular one, the membrane goes around X amount of feet. Again, it's tailorable to the site. So our our system here, I think it's going to be about 42 feet by 100 feet of containment area. The pads are 13 feet wide. So you got quite a bit of space on either side, or 30 feet wide, sorry. So you get 5 feet on either side roughly, and 10 feet on the sides of the containers that have doors. So the geomembrane lays down, and then a fabric, like the black cloth that you put underneath driveways, that stuff goes down. Then you put your washed stone on top of that. That's just to prevent punctures. Not that we're driving on top of this particular scenario on this site. It's just foot traffic, so we're not worried about punctures in general, but that will be implemented. And then the stone goes in. As I mentioned before, so say this particular system in this picture uses barrier booms that allows fluid to go through until hydrocarbons meet it. We're not utilizing that. We want full containment. So there will be a depressed vault in the corner where there will be a 4-inch perforated pipe on the interior going to the vault, dumping into that, where there'll be a 4-inch valve. That valve is an electronically closing valve. So that's a normally open stop fail valve. So when that gets a signal that there's an event, that valve closes automatically. So that can't allow any more rainwater to exit, or in our instance, fire water runoff, right? So that creates the bathtub.
That would have its own battery, like, let's say there was a lightning strike and a power outage. That could close.
This whole system, I'll explain a couple different ways of that, Mark. Coming off the street, we have a 3-phase feeder that the batteries themselves connect to. All the residual power that we use for anything else, heating, cooling, things of that nature, the fire panel, that's on a secondary service. So from the street, we have a protection there as well, as far as a break in the line or a failed system. But yes, these systems have a battery backup with them that are supposed to run for at least 48 hours up to 72. That's determined.
And that normally open valve would get maintained and checked, annually or semi-annually to make sure that it still functions. It's not rusted open or something like that.
Yep. So with my submission back to you all, imminent submission back to you, I will include this basic concepts information and all that stuff, and as well as a spill management plan tailored to this particular situation. So I'm working with Fuss and O'Neill on they've produced a spill management plan for this for me, but they're tailoring it to this site in order to lay out the plans. If this were to happen, this is how the containment is held. So the valve maintenance is involved in a maintenance schedule as well.
So is this membrane fire resistant?
This membrane is going to be covered by stone.
But the sides are not.
The sides are, it depends on the application. In this instance, I'm not positive, Jim, yet. But sometimes they stick up 6 inches. It depends on where we're at.
My point is that if there is a fire, the membrane could melt. It's plastic.
That would depend on if the membrane was exposed to the air, yes.
And the valves are normally open, right?
Correct.
That's not a fail-safe system then.
It's a normally open valve. Upon signal, it's a power loss close. So when the power is lost, so when the fire alarm triggers, it's going to trigger the signal to close the valve.
I'm not the designer of it, but any fail-safe system I've ever designed was always normally closed, power to open. But that's not I'm not designing this, so I can't say.
Well,
but I think
it's an opposite situation though.
I think in this case, you want it to drain everyday rainwater, so it has the capacity in the emergency, right?
Right.
Okay. I guess I'm surprised that it's because the membrane could, if you got a worst case scenario, you got a battery leaking, battery fire, and they're putting some water on it, the membrane could catch on fire, melt, and let the liquids leach into the soil.
Yeah.
These systems are used every day and meet SPCCs and all that stuff and so they take all this stuff into account, fires, things of that nature. That's why these things get covered in stone mostly. You'll see.
I would think it would be ideal to have, like a concrete tub or something that couldn't melt but again, we're designing for the 1% risk, but the 1% risk is catastrophic if our wells are contaminated.
Yeah, the men on that ship on which the batteries exploded and caught on fire were harmed primarily by toxic gases, which don't dissipate, they settle down. And just below these batteries is a children's park. I don't know if you know about that, but it's not even 600 feet away from where you're proposing these batteries. So the gases would settle down there. What are you going to do about preventing something like that happening?
Well, the gases don't necessarily settle. They're about the same weight as air. So they have a hard time lifting, but they don't settle. Elevation wise, we're significantly higher than the park down below. And so concern for the park, I don't really have as far as any fumes or toxic smoke or anything like that going that way. So just to speak to that a little bit, there's been a little bit of data produced out of New York since those recent fire events in, I think it was June last year, July. So there's active data being made there as far as what's left over, which has been no concerning amounts of anything. Smoke during the fire event was monitored as well, not producing anything higher than normal. The reasons for that, Mike, are during the times of these gases being expelled from the cells themselves, they're being consumed by the fire that's engulfing them, right? They're inside the container and not outside of the container. So your fumes your real toxic stuff happens in a very small amount of time, and it's pretty intense. And most of it gets consumed by the fire itself before even getting out of the container. Now, I'm not saying that there's no elevated levels of toxins in the air, because that is the nature of a fire, right? Our house fires are the same way, which have unknowns. We don't know what's inside of anybody's house. We know exactly what's in this. We know exactly what comes out in the smoke. I could show you those. We have those actually probably in the report that I've already submitted to you. So there's concern around smoke has been pretty minimal on the investigation side of things as well, for prior events that have happened. So that's kind of the data that we look at, is current stuff, not old 2017 and 19 stuff. Batteries change, technologies change, protections change, venting systems change. This particular system has an active venting system as well for meeting lower limits. We set the trigger at 10% of that lower limit, so there's no chance of it ever getting to the point of quote unquote explosion. Not that these containers can do that.
Jim, are you putting a time frame on this before you continue it, or
what was that, Mark?
I was just wondering if you were going to put a time frame on these discussions and in order to get the other hearing in, or.
Well, we want to make sure we at least get a lot of this tonight, because this will be continued.
Yeah.
It's going to be a while. Whether or not we get all the questions talked about tonight, I don't know. but we're not going to drag this on forever tonight, to your point.
I'm happy to discuss anything that anybody has a concern or wants to bring up at this point in time for this public hearing purpose.
Okay. Could you stop screen sharing so we could see everybody again?
I sure can.
Okay. I know there's a lot of notes being run back and forth, and I will be 100% honest. I paid attention to none for the simple reason that we don't answer or pay any attention to chats during a presentation. If you have questions, you're free to answer them, ask them at the open section. But as far as any chats that were, or questions or comments that were made as a chat, they're irrelevant, and I basically I ignore them because we don't have time or the luxury of trying to answer those things during the presentation. So if you have questions, any other questions right now for the planning board? I know we have more, but for the time being, let's try to get to some of the audience.
Jim, if I could just say one thing, I did jump into the chat at one point. We don't have the capacity to save those comments when we close the Zoom meeting. They will go poof. So anything you want to have a record of, you will have to say so it can go onto the recording.
Yeah, we are recording 100% of what goes on. So if you have comments or questions, they will be on tape. And they're always available on YouTube and the public TV channel. So you can always look at them afterwards if you missed something tonight. Okay, comments from the audience. Who has a question or comment?
Hi, Jim. Sean Mackin.
Excuse me, please raise your hand. That will sort you to the top of the screen.
Yes.
And then we can take you in sequence.
Yeah, if you use the Zoom raise hand function at the bottom of your screen. Should be under reactions, maybe?
Yes, it is under reactions. Mr. Fiden found it.
Hi there. Just have some quick comments that I'd like to read, and then a few comments for the board. First of all, I want to state right off the bat that I'm strongly opposed to this proposed bylaw allowing large-scale battery storage facilities in Hadley. They are not safe, and the consequences of an accident could be catastrophic. I understand that there are developers who have shown interest. I also understand that the state's attorney general has stated that prohibition of standalone storage systems violates state law. My response to that is that the attorney general's opinion is just that, an opinion. It's not law. It's not legally binding, as a court order would be. We can say no, and we should say no. I'm frankly disappointed that this bylaw has advanced this far. There's overwhelming evidence that these sites are not safe. If you just search for lithium battery storage fires and then spend the next several hours reading about fires that can't be extinguished, neighborhoods being evacuated, fumes and leakage potentially spreading, with no one even knowing what the health effects will be. Just last year, there were 3 major fires in New York State, forcing extended evacuations. People are scared to death and wondering if the air and water could be killing them. After those 3 fires, the governor of New York decided to form a safety task force. That's what happens when you rush things due to politics. The question is, are we going to follow them off the cliff or follow common sense? I said I was disappointed that this bylaw has advanced. I've watched some of the meetings, and I know that you've reviewed the map of the aquifer, which covers most of the town. You've seen that these projects put neighborhoods in harm's way. You're aware that much of the town is in the Connecticut River floodplain, and that we're blessed with living on some of the best farmland in the world, not just the country, but the world. And we're putting that in jeopardy with projects like this. And I really don't understand it. The bottom line is that if each of you can't look the people of Hadley in the eye and state that these facilities are at least reasonably safe, you have no business presenting this bylaw to town meeting. I haven't heard any of you say that these projects are safe. You all have kind of acknowledged these concerns, and yet it's still advancing the town meeting. I'm a big fan of town meeting. I like the system, but it's not set up for extended debate, in-depth debate. You get to town meeting, there may be 20 minutes of debate, and then someone moves a question. And a lot of people put their faith into the votes of boards like the planning board. If you guys approve it, they're gonna say if it's good enough for them, it's good enough for us. And that's just not the way it should be done. So I'm hoping that you will revisit this and reject it. I don't think it should go to town meeting. Some of the things that I heard tonight, I object to that Mr. Corbett was saying. I understand he has a job to do, but these fires are dangerous, and there are so many unknowns to these fumes, to these leakage, to the leakage that could happen. It's clearly dangerous, and it's happening all over the country. Other communities are going through the same thing. There's really no benefit to Hadley to have these storage facilities. It doesn't help us. It's not going to. It's not like these are direct. We're going to direct from our solar panels are going to go to this. It goes from the grid. Who knows where that energy is going? It just puts our entire community at risk. For really, as I said, no benefit. I'll just close with one thing that one point that came up was the issue of lithium batteries. And I know Mr. Corbett said it's irrelevant, and some of you said it's irrelevant. It's not irrelevant that these batteries are made with slave labor. It's very irrelevant. I think we should reject any project, whether it's solar, battery, or whatever it might be. If we can't show that these are sourced in ways that do not devastate the environment, if you look at some of these mines, the way that these things are mined, you think these are green projects? Even these batteries that we all carry around on our cell phones, there's nothing green about them. And slave labor, that's just a fact. Anybody can go on and read it. And we're saying, oh yeah, this is green, this is good. We can smile and be happy about this. They have to be sourced in ways that we can feel good about, and they just aren't right now. This project is approving these batteries is really insanity. I hope you reject it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean Mackin.
Jim, thanks for the opportunity. Tony, really well said. Great job. Tom, I appreciate you coming here because this is not easy to answer everyone's questions. Some of the questions that I put in the chat that I just want to know about regarding the energy storage system facilities, how many are in Western Mass? How many are in residential areas in Western Mass? How many standalone systems are in residential areas? Is this the only area that it could be in Hadley? As it was stated before, that we live right next to the pit. Those guys are great. However, we live right here. So an accident happens, it's a problem for us. There's a kids park that we worked our butts off and volunteered tons of hours to get kids and families to be able to enjoy it. And that's adjacent to this as well. Those are real concerns that we have. And we have solar panels. And the research that we did is ESS systems or better, they're more effective when they're paired with solar panels. So if you could answer some of those questions for us, that would help me out a lot. Thank you.
Well, you asked a bunch of questions, so we'll try to remember them, but make sure we get them.
Thanks, Jim.
How many of these are in Western Mass, Mr. Corbett? Do you know? Roughly?
So battery storage in general is everywhere in Massachusetts through Solar Smart program. It's in Western Mass. It's in Amherst as a battery. UMass Amherst has a battery. They have, I think it's like a 2 megawatt battery over there. There's batteries in residential areas, abutting residential areas through Solar Smart development. Those typically come in the form of 75% of whatever the solar system capacity was at the time is what the battery capacity would be. So typically you see a megawatt, 2 megawatt systems. We have some systems that are 3 megawatts in areas in the state, mostly attached to solar. As you stated, solar works great. Batteries work great with solar. That's the purpose, is to store the energy that's being produced and not being utilized in times of high demand. So that's what houses do on a day-to-day basis that have rooftop solar and batteries installed, which is pretty regular these days in any Eversource, National Grid, or Unitil area. So paired with solar, yes, they work better. Yes, you have less loss. As a state, we have now introduced a large amount of generation of offshore wind, or we're going to be. And the solar generation, a vast majority of the solar generation in the state doesn't have storage with it. And when you think about it, the reason for that is because it's hard to go back to a site plan that's maximized during a point in time and add that to the site. There are instances where you can do it. That's great. But unfortunately, through development of solar over the years, nobody really left or allocated any land to put storage with it. So those projects that don't have solar with them or batteries with them are going onto the grid. They're causing backups on the grid. They're causing hosting capacity problems on the line. So you have a 5 megawatt project producing 5 megawatts of energy during the sunshine on a 10 megawatt line. You have now only 5 megawatts worth of hosting capacity for your industrial complexes or wherever that feeder may go. So having battery storage on the same 3-phase line as that solar array allows the energy storage to capture that energy during times of production and store it for later use. So you're directly benefiting the localized grid. I'm not saying all battery projects are created equal. Big battery projects, and I say big, anything over 40 megawatt hours, which would be something over about a 10 megawatt system. They have their places. It's not within the localized grid. Eversource, National Grid, they've all come out, and there's a 5 megawatt max for projects on a 3-phase circuit. That is the utility's decision. And that's just kind of where the state's at right now. Is we're implementing energy storage onto 3-phase lines that are inundated with solar energy throughout the day, that are now requiring infrastructure upgrades for projects like Amazon and Charlton. They can't even connect to the grid because there's so much going on that feeder line. And if they put in battery storage, it's a non-wires approach. So that's what they're looking into doing down there, as well as putting big batteries to alleviate some of the stress on those substations. And it's a non-wires approach to infrastructure upgrades throughout the entire state to enhance the quality and delivery and resiliency of the power that everybody needs. By 2029, Massachusetts will be into a wintertime peak versus a summertime peak. We can all imagine what that's going to look like. So the more that we can store locally, the more that we can alleviate distribution charges from the high ISO New England prices during times of high demand. The ultimate goal too here, not to go too long on this, but Sean, I want to just make sure I kind of touch on things. So the residential area, batteries are everywhere in Mass. There is a map on the Department of Energy website somewhere. I could probably find it. That shows kind of battery development through the SMART programs, how many megawatts are out there. I believe there's roughly, I want to say there's 500 megawatts of battery storage in Massachusetts already right now, coupled with some type of solar, whether that be commercial or residential. So to that point, people are putting these things in their home. And they're not concerned about anything in that matter. But it's interesting concept, putting things inside the house. But there are many places, hundreds of millions of people throughout this country that have energy storage in their home.
Your hand up again, Sean?
Yeah, so thanks, Jim. So Tom, your company here, how many facilities this size, the proposed size of this one, have you installed? How many of those were standalone? And then how many of those are in Western Mass? Or because what I would love to is information about the same type of facility, standalone facility that's in a residential area, and talk to people there, or call up the town and talk to people and say, okay, what are the problems that you're seeing, or how is everything going? Because there's just not a lot of information there. You know what I mean?
To touch on that, the residential aspect, I mean, you could go on Mass Mapper online, the GIS. You could look at any solar array in the state, and you could kind of make out what a Connex box looks like. If there's a Connex box on the site, it's pretty guaranteed to have a battery with it. You'll see hundreds of them abutting residential areas, in residential areas. Those are what you'd be looking for at this point in time. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, as a standalone system, this is the current program in the state, and there's nothing out there as far as development in Eversource National Grid that is not a municipality town. So the municipalities such as Sterling, Townsend, that I could get a list to you guys. I have a list, it's just not in front of me. There's a list of municipalities, 45 municipalities in Massachusetts, and probably half of them have energy storage in one shape or another, whether that be flywheel or battery, but predominantly battery.
You're done?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Sean. Jim, Bill, when we originally looked at this, I was concerned about it being next to a neighborhood, and I said, why couldn't we restrict it to just being in the industrial zone? Was there a reason that was said that we couldn't limit it to the industrial district?
That's part of our zone bylaw. That's a discussion for the zone bylaw.
Okay.
Because that is part of the zone bylaw,
Okay.
where it's located. I'm not trying to put you off. I just want to make sure we keep things, I don't want to get them mixed up.
Right. That's the other public hearing, right?
Okay, since there's no more, anybody else with a hand up or question, comment?
Looks like Perry just joined. I don't know if she knew she has to hit the raise hand if she wants to ask a question.
Seeing, well, it's also getting, we've been on this for a while, seeing no other comments right now. And besides, we can't make a vote tonight anyways for several reasons. One, we're still waiting for the peer review from Mr. Corbett is working on that. And because we don't have a bylaw to approve it against. So we will continue the public hearing to.
About May 21.
Pardon?
May 21 is after the town meeting vote.
Okay.
That the town election.
Town meeting is when, Bill? May 9th?
I believe it's the 9th.
Okay.
I don't know when the election is, actually.
A town election is,
It might be the 21st.
I believe, the 14th. Is
Oh, okay.
that correct, Mike? I mean, Mark, do you know?
I don't have it in front of me. I have it in the
I
other room.
believe it's the 14th because we were supposed to have we're at the 21st.
21st rung to me, but I can run and grab it. I've got Jessica's sheets in the other room.
Let me see if she has it on the town calendar yet. No, she doesn't have anything in May on the town calendar, not even the town meeting.
Date of the town meeting is?
I'm not sure. I think it should be either it should be the first Thursday in May. But I don't know.
Well, Mark is going to look for that information. You mentioned Charlton. That's probably one you wouldn't want to bring up again because that's where the Tesla had a battery storage fire. They put 20,000 gallons of water on it. They couldn't put the fire out. So
I don't recall that. In Charlton?
Charlton,
Maybe on the highway on
the Pike.
On the Mass Pike, maybe. Cars are a totally different animal.
Just had a meeting today and we were told that our next meeting cannot be that day. April. A minute.
May 21st, annual town elections.
Okay. Yes, May 21st is yes.
Okay. Yeah, we can't do it then.
What's the first one in June?
Well, we could have the meeting on May 7th. We still won't be able to make a vote, but at least we can review information and the peer review and stuff like that. You should have that done by then, right, Mr. Corbett?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I fully expect to be like ready to give you guys back a
Okay.
final document, probably
Jim,
realistically, probably the middle of April at this point with engineering and things of that nature.
May 7th, I'm away.
You're away?
Yep.
Oh, well, okay. We want to make sure we have a full contingent. All right, how about June 4th?
Perfect.
All right,
Okay, I'll make a motion to continue to June 4th.
very good.
Second,
That motion second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion, anybody against? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, just for everybody's information, the meeting will reconvene on May 7th, roughly 6:45, same as today. And we will have hopefully information, we'll have a lot more information at that time as far as a peer review and a result of the town meeting, and we'll go from there.
You just said May 7th. What about June 4th?
Pardon?
You just said the meeting will reconvene on May 7th.
Correct.
I thought we just,
Continue to May 7th.
what was the vote about June 4th?
Joe's not here May 7th.
No, I'm sorry, June 4th, yeah. We'll have a result of the town meeting from May 9th for that. My mistake, sorry. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you for attending. Next up, we will have the public hearing on the proposed zone bylaw. The Hadley Planning Board will conduct a Zoom public hearing on Tuesday, March 19th, 2024, beginning at 6:45. Detailed Zoom details at the end of the notice. Purpose of the hearing is to review the following proposed amendment to the Hadley zone bylaw. Amend section 1B definitions and amend section 28 solar energy systems by adding definitions and requirements to allow energy storage systems either as standalone or in conjunction with solar systems. The complete zone bylaw and map are available upon request via email to the Hadley, to planning@hadleyma.gov, or yes, published twice in the Gazette, February 13th and 20th. And everybody has received on the planning board a copy of the zone bylaw, and the energy storage system would be permitted in all zones where a large ground mount solar is permitted. It will be by special permits, site plan approval, and special permit under the solar energy bylaw. And the bylaw that was in front of us prohibits energy storage systems in the aquifer region, but it would be permitted in the industrial regions and in all other areas of ag residential that aren't in the aquifer. It is not permitted in the business zone. Comments, questions?
Question, I had a question during the last public hearing, but it seemed inappropriate to ask it at the time. When we open to the public for comment, should we ask them to identify their address so that Hadley residents speak first and then someone who's not in Hadley is understood to be not in Hadley?
We could, but usually people that are making comments, like everyone tonight was a Hadley resident.
Right.
The only non-hazard Hadley resident were, well, the ones for the solar
proponent.
review, and Mr. Corbett is obviously not a Hadley resident.
Right.
If we want them to, we could ask that.
No, I mean, I just did not know myself because I didn't know those names. I don't know those people. So if you knew that they were abutters, I didn't. And so
They also said that
it then came out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I think unlike town meeting where it makes a difference, for our public hearings, we've never made an issue out of it. And especially when we have a small, I call this a manageable group, because it's one panel, one paint. That's less than 25 people counting the planning board and Alex from Hadley Media. So it's a good point. When we had the public hearing for the Super Walmart, for example, that was a different story. You had to have that in the cafeteria at Hopkins.
Yeah.
But in this case, I think it's manageable.
I just will just note that I was heartened to see people, because when Tom first came to us, I thought I was speaking up on behalf of the people of Quinlan Drive, saying, well, do we want this in residential? But we had several meetings with him and no one ever, I guess, watched the meetings and knew about it. So I'm glad to hear that they're paying attention. But I just wanted to, I know it can be a very hot topic because it's close to home. And we could get, some firebrand from out of town coming in to, I just wanted to avoid that.
It would probably be more important to have a 3-minute speaking limit than worry about where people are speaking from.
I mean, if we had several pages of people or several, whatever you want to call it, and there was, like the Walmart one, we put a time limit, and we did have specific rules as far as only townspeople tonight and so on and so forth. And the chairman, because you're going to be chairman of some committees, the chairman has the right to set the rules as they see fit within reason.
I am being schooled. Thank you very much. This is all new to me, and I just want to make sure.
That's fine. That's everybody gets put in a hot seat sooner or later.
Yep.
So I'll just say by way of background, when we originally worked out the solar bylaw, the solar siting bylaw, we intentionally included the agricultural residential district in that. And the agricultural residential district probably is about 2/3 to 3/4 of the town. And there are some neighborhoods that are much more residential than agricultural. Think Aloha, Morningstar, some of the streets off of Shattuck Road. There are also pretty big expanses of farm fields, hundreds of acres. And part of the thought of including the agricultural residential district was that we wanted to provide perhaps an extra revenue source for the farmers, because that's where they are. They're not in the industrial section by and large. They're not on the Route 9 business section by and large. But we wanted to open up that opportunity to local landowners if they wanted to grow solar rather than onions this year. God bless. Let them do it if they can find someone. So that's part of the answer to why solar is allowed in residential areas, because most of the town is zoned agricultural residential. We intentionally excluded it from the business district at the time because we wanted to preserve that brick and mortar business opportunity. as times change, maybe we would want to revisit some of those underpinnings, but several, I think all of the large-scale ground-mounted solar are on properties owned by local people, as far as I can recall. All the ones we've approved and that have been built.
Many of those are indeed farmers. I think all but one was a farmer.
Yeah, what's the big one back behind the mall there?
Well, there's two. There's several. There's one is most of them are owned by Goulet.
Okay.
I'm not sure if one is on Gordon Smith property or Parsons. I don't think Parsons has. They might be Gordon Smith. I'm not positive of that.
I think it's all Wayne Goulet or Allard Farms.
Right, I think so too.
Off of Mill Valley Road on both north side of Mill Valley Road and behind the malls.
Joe Sikorsky has an experimental one that's going to be going up off of Cummins Road or Shattuck Road, where he's actually going to be trying to farm under the panels.
Right.
That's a kind of an R&D thing that's going on with UMass. So that'll be an interesting one.
Right.
The one up off of Huntington Road is it was almost a woodlot that it was over and over. Oh, I don't even know if it was a woodlot. Was that ever a farm field up there, Joe?
Yeah, it was farm, but the fact that it was on such a side hill, a heavy rain kind of washed the crops out. So it was marginal farmland.
Yeah.
But it was a Hadley owned. It is Hadley owned property.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
To this day, but it was definitely a working farm at one point.
Okay. The current bylaw proposes to prohibit it in the aquifer. And I guess the big question here is, do we want to continue with that prohibition or do we want to permit it in the aquifer?
I'm not inclined to put our aquifer at risk, no matter how low that risk is.
What was that, Mark?
I'm not inclined to allow it in the aquifer,
Okay.
no matter how low a risk that is. But I thought that when I said that before, I thought someone said the state could say we're being overly prohibitive, but I'm like, we have a right to protect our.
Of course.
Well,
I agree with Mark, 100%.
That's a wide open thing because much like Bill said, certainly pretty much half of Hadley, if not more than that, is aquifer.
Yeah.
However, it is aquifer. You damage the aquifer, that's major problems.
Yeah.
Could it damage the aquifer? Anything's possible. You can look at what happened to Whately years ago, and they had a lot of private wells. They ended up putting in a public water supply system that was insanely expensive that the people had to hook up to and paid a small fortune. And that was 25 plus years ago that happened, or 30. I don't remember exactly.
It's about.
We want to preserve our.
It's about 30 years ago, and Temic was the problem from the
farmers
tobacco company.
Yeah, we don't want another Love Canal here.
So, Joe, what's your 2 cents on that?
Yeah, I agree with Mark.
Mr. Bill?
I'm trying to keep an open mind about it. Where I'm concerned is whether if the state, where the state is going to place the burden of proof. Is it going to be up to us to prove that there is a danger to the aquifer? Or is the state going to say is the state going to have to prove there's no danger to the aquifer before they insist we take it?
Yeah, that's, I'm kind of with you on that one. However, I'm inclined to say not permit it, because if the state overrules us, the worst that could happen is they're going to say you got to allow it. But if we take the stand not to permit it in the aquifer, then, you know, we've got some discussions that we can be making that, well, Hadley's, you know, it's both sides of the coin. Because it's such a big aquifer area, we're limiting it to where this can be installed. However, that's true. But because we have such a big aquifer area, damaging it could be bad for the town. And what do we do if we lose our aquifer? So I'm willing to take the risk of letting the state overrule us and see what would happen.
Hadley doesn't have the ability to determine what our geology is. Okay, that happened millions of years ago, or at least in terms of the aquifer, 20,000 years ago. It's not our fault.
I thought Joe was around back then. He might know.
Close.
What was the name of the book I gave you?
Dinosaurs, Dunes, and Drifting Continent by Richard Little.
I recommend the book if you want to learn about the geology of the Pioneer Valley.
I highly recommend it too.
But getting back to the point, I've been looking at the map while we're talking, and the industrial zone east of 116, that strip, that seems like, you know, the biggest area that's not in an aquifer protection recharge. Is that a lot of wetland over there?
There's some, and there's also agri-industrial land behind, off of what is it, Mill Valley Road.
Stockbridge.
That's not in the aquifer.
Although I think that is no longer accessible.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because there's a strip of ag residential along Mill Valley, and the industrial is to the rear. The only access to that parcel, those parcels, was through off of South Maple Street through what's now the storage facility.
Right.
I wonder if we could get someone from Eversource to meet with us and work on an overlay district that would work for them, work for us. Here's an area where you've got the infrastructure, the three-phase legs, whatever you need, but that would work with our environmental concerns.
Eversource owns some land on the corner of Mill Valley and South Maple that they were proposing a solar array on, and I'm surprised.
Then they withdrew from there.
They sold it to Kestrel, I think, or American Farmland Trust or some.
Okay, that was my question. That went through?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay. Mr. Fiden, you have your hand up.
I did, thank you. It's just one thing I didn't get to in my earlier comments that might apply here, and there's been a lot of deference paid to the Attorney General's statement. That seems to be a driving force for this, but it's important to note that it is a part of the Attorney General's statement that these sites can be rejected on the basis of health, safety, or welfare. And when we're talking about Hadley and the issues that we've discussed tonight and previously, it's perfectly legitimate to reject this on the basis of health, safety, and welfare purposes. Outright, say we're not. It just doesn't work for us on those legitimate bases. So, again, I do not see the problem with saying no, and I think I think that's if we do frame it, that give the reasons why we're saying no as a town. And again, if they want to come after us, and they might, then we'll at least the select board decide to defend us in court, which is not a sure thing. Then we'd have a fight we'd have something to fall back on and fight with. Secondly, or lastly, I don't think a lot of people know about this. Yes, and there are some people that that were on here tonight and talking around town, even people in the neighborhood. A lot of people are not aware of this, and you know, it's unfortunate that we're almost at the end of this process, going to town meeting, and a lot of the neighbors still are not aware of it. I don't know what efforts the 0 Point or the board, the planning board made to reach out to people, but I can definitely say that a lot of people, even people in that neighborhood, are unaware of this project. So there's that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Quinlan, you have any comments? No. You'll stay out of this one, huh?
Come on, Tom, join the fun.
He has enough fun every day.
Remember what Plato said, those who refuse to participate in politics are condemned to be ruled by someone inferior to themselves.
I would suggest that we not close this public hearing. We continue it for a while. As Tony mentioned, maybe some other people will get interested, and happy to keep on. We have literally until the the eve of town meeting to take a vote on it, to recommend it.
That may be a good point, and a couple of points kind of coalesced at one time. When you mentioned the Walmart hearing in the cafeteria, there was an outsider from Greenfield that was fairly vociferous, and we did let him speak for a while. And he's also very vociferous in battery energy storage systems, and he wrote a long letter to the Greenfield Recorder when Wendell failed to pass some of their solar bylaws, and one of them had to do with battery storage system. So he may appear at our town meeting, or maybe our next meeting on Zoom.
Talking about Greenfield, did you know that with Wilson's closing, Wilson's department store, you can no longer buy a pair of socks in Greenfield? Right?
Okay.
Walmart wanted to go up there.
We digress.
Yes.
When do we want to continue this one to, Bill?
I was wondering, we did say that we were not going to.
It's on the 16th. Yeah, that was going to be 100% PVPC.
The 16th.
Right, but we could continue it to the 2nd, and then we could continue it to the 1st to May.
Sure.
I mean, if something really hot comes up on the 2nd, we want to bring up on the 16th, I suppose we always could. Maybe just continue it for the time being, meeting to meeting, and see if anybody is interested in putting 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I'd put it on the agenda, Bill, because certainly, you know, with some of this publicity and people.
Okay, I'll take that as a second to my motion to continue it to 4/2/24.
Absolutely a second.
To who? 4-2, right?
4/2.
4-2, okay. Motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion goes to motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for listening and for partaking. And to that point, if anybody has comments for the zone bylaw, it'll be 2 weeks from tonight.
If anyone wants to send in comments to planning@hadleyma.gov, you're welcome to do that as well. I get that email and I share whatever comes in with the other members of the board.
Okay. I have nothing else.
Move we adjourn.
Wait a minute.
I'm just thinking, just more on the topic of future issues. we did have, I sent a couple of things around, just to be aware of on, there was one on some of the subterranean problems, the infrastructure problems with the MBTA communities bylaw, just saying that you should put in X number of extra units may not work if you don't have the infrastructure to back it up. Apropos of the MBTA communities, I understand that the Supreme Judicial Court has agreed to hear the case, to directly take the case that the Attorney General brought against the town of Milton, which rejected the MBTA community's requirement to make multifamily dwellings buildable by right adjacent to the MBTA station. So there's going to be some movement on that.
Now, do you have any doubt that the SJC will vote in any differently?
We remains to be seen.
Yes.
And then the second thing, which came down just at the end of last week, was a decision from Land Court to the effect that bed and breakfast as a principal use. There are people buying houses on Nantucket to rent them out as an Airbnb or a vacation rental by owner.
Short-term rental, they call it.
Short-term rentals as a principal use is not an allowed residential use.
It's become, what did they call it? Commercial or transient?
It's like commercial.
Yeah.
There is a bylaw. The vacation short-term rentals are allowed as an accessory use. So someone bought a house on Nantucket that had a carriage house with a one-bedroom apartment attached to it. They would stay, they would come up from Connecticut or wherever they lived occasionally, but they would only stay in the carriage house, and they'd rent out the 4-bedroom house as a short-term rental, and bought the house for that purpose. And the court said, no, you cannot have a short-term rental as the principal use in a residential district.
If they had that much money and they were smart, they should have found out who that neighbor was. Complaining about that light shining into her, it wasn't even her bedroom. It was one of the windows in her house, and she complained.
No, but she also would go out on her deck and have to hear them talking and partying all night about, because when they're there for a week, they're celebrating almost every night, as opposed to someone who lives there. I got her point, some of it seemed excessive, but you get it. And they would bring dogs, and she couldn't even work in her garden. Anyways, it was an interesting article.
Okay.
There are some
It reminds me of student housing next door to some people. Okay.
Hadley has a number of those. Mr. Duncan, you have your hand up?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you were able to review my proposal for signage for the Ideal Movers and Storage project.
Oh, yeah, that was the signage up on the building.
Yes.
And I think it was, 64 square feet?
Under 64, yes.
And it was raised letters, backlit.
Well, not backlit.
Or
actually,
I thought it was like a glow.
Halo.
Yeah.
Halo effect, yes.
Halo effect. I think we call it backlit, but not internally lit, but I thought it was,
Exactly.
Can you bring them up, or do you want me to try to find them?
Yeah,
I'm not able to bring them up. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'll see if I can. I had trouble opening one of your.
Right, I sent you.
You sent again,
twice.
but
Have you been here the whole time?
No.
Yes, I have been.
I'm sorry I missed you then. I didn't see you on my list.
I know. I thought I was on the agenda, but I've been holding out.
Your persistence is respectable,
Thank you.
and your patience.
We don't offer appointments. We don't require or offer appointments for our business session. So you weren't on the agenda. You have to be here when we start the meeting.
Yeah,
Let me see
I'm
what
sorry. I tried to be, I was close to being on time for the meeting, but
Okay, let's see. I have design 1.
3/7/24, I've got it from, it looks like.
Yeah,
Email.
And it was on the west facade along the South Maple.
exactly. Basically the front of the building.
Yeah, yeah. Up
Yes.
under that cornice that kind of angles out.
Exactly.
okay. So we have,
Seemed to be thought out and compliant with from my initial looks of it.
Exactly. That was my intention.
Yeah.
The original proposal was much larger signage on the front of the building. And some of the members of the board that saw the original proposal were kind of shocked, and I agreed. And I mentioned to the owners that that's not going to fly in Hadley, and it's really too much. It's way too much signage. And I've been doing signs for 40 years, so I said, let's scale it back and do it within the limits of the bylaws and just see how that looks. And they agreed to do that. And I went through a process of making proposals to them. And I ended up with this rendering, which I know is very faint because I'm not that good with the Photoshop, to be honest, but that's the best I could do in putting my projection of the size of the project onto that building, which is much less than 10%. And there's some of the specifications, and they tell you that
64 square feet.
Yeah, what's
10% would be 340 square feet. Yeah,
we don't have a 10% bylaw.
I know. I'm just saying as a reference,
Yeah.
it's below the 64 square foot total. And what I did is I drew a box around the whole area of the signage
Right. That's
and
what,
created a 64 square foot area that I kept it within there. And
it's
our
a-
intention was to stay within the bylaws and to be
it's a nice sign.
tasteful.
It's a nice sign. It complies with almost everything in the bylaw, but where's the roof line?
Where's the roof line?
A sign is not allowed to be located above the roof line.
Oh, no, it's below the roof line, well below. It's on the facade. It's on the
That's
face
not
of the
roof.
building.
We don't allow 4-story buildings.
is the roof
Hadley. So
line
that is a
cornice?
parapet, probably to disguise the air conditioning and other systems. But we went through this with Belize for other members of the board. They had a fake front that they raised up above the roof line, and finally they did lower it below the roof line. I may be out of bounds, but I was just wondering what other people think.
There is a parapet, as you called it, and there is a decorative element to the top of the roof,
Correct?
which I'm not, I don't know what to say about that, but that's part of the design of the building.
Well,
That
that's
proposal is for the signage on the building to comply with the bylaws of Hadley and to look presentable. The original proposal that I was given by the architects was outrageously large, and I scaled it back so that we could make a presentation that was reasonable. And I don't know about the thing on the top there, to be honest. I really don't know that much about that thing. I'm not that fond of it, to be perfectly honest.
At worst, it might have to come down to just above the top frame of the glass.
Yeah, that's the difficult thing. And
I tried to center it into that area there, I guess you'd say. Yeah, that's what the idea is, to center it into that area. And 64 square feet, and, you know, aligned with the building, I think looks, the signage is appropriate for the
beautiful building. It's a beautiful sign, but the genesis of the bylaw was Kmart with a big K way in Woolco's and Almies and
I remember that.
So on and so forth. They were all above, they were all internally lit, and they were almost like Las Vegas. So that's the genesis of the bylaw. This looks attractive. The building is attractive.
Yeah.
If the rest of the board is willing to overlook
Thank
it,
you.
I would be too.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well, I'll make a motion to approve the signage as presented.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Motion and second. Any other discussion?
I wonder if we could take it from the center of that parapet and maybe drop it down so it's centered not on the center, but centered on the 1/3 up. So then it would be a little closer to what we are guessing the actual roof line is. Now, we don't know. The architect's not here to tell us. There could be a roof over the mechanical equipment, in which case this is fine.
Actually, I don't believe there is any equipment up on the roof.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to the owner and the contractor about it, which I'm close to both of them because I've been working with them for like 30 years. But the fact is, I think that is totally a decorative thing. And I don't know that I could lower that signage much more because of the fact that it's got to be connected up behind, as he said, there's a parapet, and that parapet is only over the 3rd floor at a certain point. In other words, I can't propose to move that much lower than it is, but I will keep that in mind. If you,
yeah, I was just wondering if the top of Ideal was lowered to the middle of Ideal, just dropping it a bit, but maybe I'm splitting hairs. So
I can definitely put that in motion as a consideration. Yes.
I don't know if my fellow board members care, you know.
Well,
No, I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Well, architecturally, how do you think it looks, Mark?
Well,
So Bill made the motion.
yes, Bill made a motion.
Yeah.
You want to try to amend the motion, Mark?
I would amend the motion to lower it. I'm gonna say that's like 18 inches. I don't know.
I feel like we're just getting into the weeds on
I
design.
think we're kind of splitting hairs. That if that, I'll be honest, if that section is a parapet, whether it's lowered a foot, 18 inches, it's still going to be
in
above
violation
the actual roof line.
And I think
that's true.
Yeah, I remember those signs that were above the roof line. I mean, they were really above the roof line. This,
So was the Steve Lewis Subaru.
Exactly.
More like this one. So.
I put a sign up on a building that I thought I had a permit for in Hadley. That was on the roof. It was at the Walters building there one year. At the propane, they had a little propane business there, and I put a sign up on his roof. He asked me to do it, and
well, I'm
building
glad
inspector came by and he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, no, I thought he already had a permit."
Well,
He
I'm
said,
glad
"He
there's
told
somebody
you that?
presenting before this
Walter
board that's
told you
older
that
than
you
I.
had a permit?" And I said, "Yeah, Walter told me I had a permit." He goes, "Well, it's okay. Well, if Walter told you I had a permit, then yeah." No.
Well, it sounds like my amendment to Bill's motion is gonna probably go down in flames. Do we have to go through the motions?
So I'll second Bill Dwyer's motion.
No, Mike already seconded it, so motion made and seconded,
Motion and second. Any other discussion?
I will withdraw my proposed amendment.
Okay.
How's
very
that?
good. Anything
Thank you,
else?
gentlemen.
Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
If
Very
Walter
good.
says it's good, it's good.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, this
You
is.
did a good job tonight. Good work.
Well, geez, thank you for coming on board. Anybody who remembers that Walter sign is going to be older than I am.
I'm 70.
I got socks in my drawer older than that, so. But nevertheless, it's another thing. People always say, we'll come back with a sign. Put the sign up there and then we'll come back and review it. But, they come back for the sign and then we get caught with something like this. Just a lesson for us for our logistics.
Well, I appreciate your attention to the subject. Thank you very much.
And we appreciate your patience. in
Thank you.
Sitting through the whole thing, yes.
All right.
Anything else?
I've got nothing else.
I've got nothing. All our bills are paid.
Thank you.
Thank you, Duncan.
Adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
So
Second.
moved.
And a second?
Second from.
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye.
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 Meeting is history. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Andrew. Good night.
Thank you, Dee Dee.
Recording